To achieve the EU's 2050 emissions targets, the transport sector, which accounts for around 1/3 of GHGs, will have to cut its carbon footprint by more than 60% compared with 1990 levels. This will require a shift in both attitude and technology to the way we travel and the way we transport and consume products. It will also require strong collaboration between government and the private sector if we are to reach the goals set forth. With fossil fuel prices at an all-time high across the globe, public and commercial appetite for energy saving is high. How can that enthusiasm be turned into long-lasting, effective solutions?
If we want to achieve our climate goals and have a real sustainable transport system, we need to cope with ordinary citizens' transport and mobility, but also the industry.
If you want to decrease CO2 from transport, not only road transport, you have to tackle all the modes. You have to tackle the maritime, airlines as well as road transport.
Certainly at the moment the emissions from freight are too high. Cars are the biggest source, so it's inevitable that the most attention is paid to them. People are often taking journeys which frankly they don't need to make or they'd rather not make. But we have to accept that mobility is something that people prize very highly, and therefore we need to be able to provide them with vehicles that meet their needs.
It's very difficult to say, okay, we'll just travel less. What that means that we will basically accepting less development, we're accepting less access to trade, less access to jobs, less access to interaction of communities.
We need to change the mentality and the mindset of people and explain them through different policy measures. For example, by pricing measures, that it's more efficient to use, for example, public transportation. Well, if we don't change policies, the transport of goods will increase by 2050 with 80%, which is incredible.
Using only local products, you are coming back on comparative advantages. You are coming back on the basis on which the European Union, the common market, the internal market has been really built.
The way we work now by using that kind of vehicles, that kind of bikes, has two main goals. The first one is to reduce the traffic, and the second one to reduce the CO2 emissions.
What we need is an integrated policy on transport, and there will be no one solution.
As we get more renewables in the grid, so the emissions from battery electric vehicles will fall considerably. It's also clear that there are big synergies between getting more electric vehicles and helping to balance the grid with more renewables.
Biofuels in the next decades are going to play a very important role in decarbonizing the fuels that we use for transport.
More sophisticated biofuels possibly, but the current generation of biofuels we have will have a very limited role. We need to be looking to be producing biofuels which aren't dependent upon agricultural land. If the industry can do that, there's a future role for biofuels.
Every study that you see from the International Energy Agency that there is in the world enough land for agriculture to produce both food and fiber and energy.
Taxation is probably one of the answers. If you would put taxes on fuels and on cars based on CO2, you would solve the problem.
Taxation is part of the solution in the sense that you need to reward people when they use more sustainable transport modes and maybe punish them a little bit when they keep using their personal car for going to the bakery or to the shop near the corner.
Taxation could reduce the amount of vehicles driving to the city centers, but they will have to recharge a part of the taxation on their customer. And are the customers now ready to pay more to be delivered? That's the question.
Well, I'm a little bit worried actually if we can really achieve our targets by 2050 because of the lack of political will. It asks a lot of courage from politicians at all levels to really implement the necessary measures.
If you would have to increase the price of fuel by X percentage, no government will take the responsibility to do that.
Governments should put further legislation that really attack the main issue, how to reduce the carbon emissions per kilometer driven, and let the market and let the industry develop the best solutions in order to achieve that target.
Combining new technology, pricing measures and let's say legislation to maybe force people a little bit to change their behavior.
There is no single solution to meeting EU 2050 emission targets. But what encouragement do industry, governments and indeed consumers need to play their parts effectively? Have your say at commentvisions.com, on LinkedIn and via Twitter.